We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday. We've had a hell of a week. A lot of shit going on, a lot of things to talk about, some very interesting things, and some good news for people who don't like Donald Trump or the Republican Party. We've got some interesting shit coming for that. I wanted to just tell you before we get started into the show, I'd like to give you a little insight of my exciting life. Actually, it was kind of exciting yesterday. My wife and I were looking for something to do, and we decided to go to a movie. We don't go to movies as much as we used to, but from time to time, we like to go to movies. It's more fun than streaming some movie and paying $5 to get it. I'd rather go to a movie theater, get actual movie theater popcorn. My wife is a big fan of buttered popcorn, so it's a big deal for her to go. But the question is, what do you go see? Well, there was no question. We went to see The Equalizer 3 because there's nothing I like more than watching Denzel Washington kick people's asses. I've seen all three Equalizer movies and I love these movies. And I think it has a lot to do with somebody taking care of bullies or people taking advantage of other folks. And this movie did not disappoint. I like the first two. I like this third one. I'll go see pretty much anything that Denzel's in. He's a fucking great actor, and this role of the Equalizer is pretty impressive. So if you're looking for a movie, Equalizer 3, highly recommended. 2 thumbs up. Now you got to be old to understand that reference. You young people, Google the thumbs up for movies. You'll find out what the fuck's up. Now, I have an email or two, but before we get into that, I wanted to talk about something. This was kind of another prediction I made the other day. You know how Donald Trump had been going to his court case with Letitia James, the lawsuit. He'd been there the first 3 days, and then on the fourth day, he flew home to Florida. And I don't think he was expecting to do that, but what he was hearing in court was really driving him nuts. He was having trouble holding his water, so to speak. And he would go out in the hall and he would spew stuff. And Letitia James wasn't being friendly. The judge wasn't being friendly. And Donald Trump didn't know what to do. Once again, he's in a situation where he has no control. And that's a bad place for a guy who's a control freak to be. And so he went off, took his orange paint for his face and his body, and went home to Mara Lago. I think some people were kind of surprised that he even showed up at this court hearing because he isn't required to. He isn't required to come to this hearing or this trial, but he did. And one of the reasons he did was because he was trying to avoid something less palatable to him. You might have heard about the lawsuit he filed against Michael Cohen. He sued him for $500 million. He thought he could bully Michael Cohen because Michael Cohen's going to be a witness in at least a couple of his cases. And he thought, well, he could put the pressure back on Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen's a smart guy. I don't know really how smart he is, but it goes without saying that he's substantially smarter than Donald Trump. So he did something that I don't think Donald Trump was expecting and certainly was not interested in participating in. You see, Michael Cohen, since he was being sued by Donald Trump, he asked to depose Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump has no interest in being deposed in the first place and being under oath. But then you throw at him the guy questioning him is going to be Michael Cohen. And who knows Donald Trump better than Michael Cohen? He's going to rip Donald Trump apart. So he said, I'd like to come. I'd like to be deposed, but we're going to have to delay it because I've got this court case for this lawsuit with Letitia James. Now, this deposition was supposed to happen on October 9th. Yesterday was October 5th. He wasn't there yesterday, so he would have plenty of time to get ready for a deposition and be in place to do it. See, Donald Trump fucked himself on this deal. He went there to delay the deposition, and then he couldn't handle it when he got into the trial with Letitia James. So he just got out of there, pouted, and went home. And I think Letitia James had something to do with him leaving as well. If nothing else, she kicked him in the ass while he was going out the door because she said there would be no more Trump show. Anyway, Michael Cohen was very aware of what was going on. And he saw that all of a sudden Donald Trump was free in spite of the motion he made in his lawsuit with Michael Cohen. So now he was going to be required to show up to this deposition. Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump is suing Michael Cohen for $500 million. He must be pretty sure about this, right? So anyway, this all happens. He's no longer in court in New York with this lawsuit. He's now available to be deposed, and Michael Cohen is pushing the issue. Now, I made a prediction earlier yesterday, and I said, probably what's going to happen is Donald Trump is going to drop the lawsuit. Mr. Tough Guy is going to bail because he doesn't want to be deposed by Michael Cohen. Well, former President Donald Trump late on Thursday abruptly dropped a lawsuit against his former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, as a conflict loomed between the litigation and Trump's campaign to win back the White House. A federal magistrate judge had ordered Trump to sit for a deposition in the case starting Monday morning in New York. Earlier this week, however, the former president scheduled a campaign rally in New Hampshire for Monday at noon, which isn't a good excuse for missing the deposition, especially when it's your fucking lawsuit. Trump had already delayed the deposition twice, and his lawyers had tried to have it scheduled for Sunday. But at a hearing last week, the judge declined to grant that date and insisted on Monday. Now, I don't know what the difference between Sunday and Monday is. Maybe there would be less media coverage, but I doubt that because this was a pretty big story and it involved Donald Trump. Now, Trump's aides and lawyers rebuffed questions about the conflicting demands over the past couple of days, but in a court filing around 8 p.m. on Thursday, a Florida-based attorney for Trump, Alejandro Brito, announced that his client was dropping the case. The one-line filing offered no explanation, but said the termination of the suit was without prejudice, meaning it could be refiled. Trump filed the suit in April in federal court in South Florida, alleging that Cohen breached attorney-client privilege and a confidentiality agreement by making public allegations about Trump. Well, Donnie doesn't feel too strongly about it because he bailed on that lawsuit. And as I suspected, Donald Trump is very averse to depositions, and he's particularly concerned about this deposition because it would be handled by Michael Cohen. Nobody knows more, no lawyer knows more about Donald Trump's business and the way he does things than Michael Cohen. This could have been very, very embarrassing. Donald Trump did the wise thing in dropping the lawsuit, but you have to wonder, what was his reasoning for filing the lawsuit? Did he not ever consider that Michael Cohen would want to depose him? Motherfuckers have no foresight. They don't think about what they're doing. They just react. So Donald Trump's lawsuit against Michael Cohen has now been dropped. Apparently it wasn't a big deal. And he won't be going back to his lawsuit with Letitia James because he's kind of disruptive. And I think his people think he'll get in trouble if he keeps going there. But what they have to understand is if he keeps talking, whether he's in New York or Florida or New Jersey, it doesn't matter. He's not supposed to say certain things. Now, I don't know what this Judge Engoron will do if he continues to spew his shit, but I know that on October 16th, Donald Trump and his people are to meet with Judge Tanya Chutkin in Washington, D.C. about some of his behavior issues. And I have a feeling she's going to lay down the law and there will be no second chances after this. She's probably going to tell him, listen, you leave me no options. If you continue this, you're going to fucking jail. Simple as that. Then at least she will have been able to say that she warned Donald Trump. And then if he continues to do it and goes to jail, well, then it's on him. All right, we have an email. We have a couple of emails, actually. First one starts out, and this is a long one, but I'm happy with the long ones. Mike KCT here. Our government and perhaps our nation has lost empathy for those hurting in our nation. I don't know how much longer we can live with this condition before the moral fabric of our existence starts to erode. Perhaps the wearing down is already underway. Frustration runs high in the nation that proclaims freedom, equality, liberty, and justice for all. We're struggling on several fronts. Government is soiled with underhanded funding influencers. Businesses and economics are blatantly driven by personal and corporate greed. Policing, legal, and justice systems weigh much heavier on poor and people of color. Religions, education systems, and social services are infiltrated with politically laced agendas, and our many flavors of media, news, and talking heads aggressively taunt, tease, and tear us apart. I couldn't agree more. All of these national level processes and organizations have the ability to do better and to right their wrongs, which begs the question, why don't they? Perhaps this great nation has lost touch with the basic concept of empathy. The common admonition to walk a mile in someone's shoes means before judging them, you must understand their experiences, challenges, thought processes, etc. It is a simple reminder to practice empathy before passing judgment. The concept to walk a mile in my shoes may be credited to Mary Lathrop poem published in 1895. The original title of the poem was Judge Softly, later titled Walk a Mile in His Moccasins. There are many variations of this phrase. It's an honest plea for empathy by putting yourself in the shoes of others. The application of this phrase calls us to mentally put ourselves in the place of others and be more understanding and compassionate before we unjustly judge or allow national level processes and organizations to do harm to those within our nation's greater influence. So here's my point. Are the people and processes that lead and influence our nation truly emphatic to the least of these in our nation? Is our nation's government, businesses, and economics, religions, education systems, media, social and legal services built to care equally for the greatest and the least of our nation? No, they are not. So why do we allow this disparity? Why don't these national level processes and organizations right their wrongs? There is simply not enough empathy among many of us. We seem to lack empathy on the national level for many of us. We've lost touch with the real world hardships the more than a third of our nation struggle with daily. Now, many of us struggle with empathy toward homelessness, addiction, poverty, hunger, lack of privilege, oppression, failing schools, poor medical care, abuse, violence, or escaping national crises. I didn't say crises because we have not lived it. Brace yourself. This is going to hurt. Not having experienced hardship is not an excuse to tolerate, allow, or turn our heads where hardship exists. We often lie to ourselves, believing these hardships are self-induced or could have been avoided with just a little effort or desire. This is true for a small percent of those living with real hardships. Some people just bring hardships on themselves, but truthfully, the anti-hardship deck has been stacked against large portions of our nation for generations. We want to believe our nation allows everyone with the equal chance to be whatever they want to be. The chance is certainly there, but it is not equal by any measure. The cure is not quick or easy. We must go and learn why empathy is so important. We must do better individually and collectively at engaging those outside of our natural surroundings. We must spend some time away from the safety and comfort of our self-absorbed existences to meet, get to know, and embrace those living in hardship around us. We must develop relationships with those unlike ourselves and gain a better understanding of the underlying hardships. We must take the knowledge we gain from embracing those in need to vote smarter and better. We must become the voice and the advocate for those ignored, discarded, and forgotten. Now, we must not do these things to be heroes, recognized, or promoted. No, we must do these things because this is who we claim to be. This is the right way to treat our fellow human beings. These are the basics of human decency. And finally, our effort will teach us empathy, grace, and tolerance, not because we're better than those living with hardships, but because we cared enough to be better understand the hardships. And by doing so, our nation will be less divided, less hateful, and more in line with who we claim to be. My shoes are not your shoes, but I'm willing to try your shoes. KCT, thank you very much for that email. Very profound and very poignant. And I agree. There is not enough empathy in this world. You see a homeless person on the street, 9 times out of 10, the people will turn their head, maybe cross to the other side of the street. They don't want to be impacted by somebody else's despair. It makes people feel uncomfortable. It's the same situation. Say you have a friend whose husband or wife dies. What typically happens when that happens, people avoid you because they don't know what to say or do. They'd rather be more comfortable than to deal with the problems of their friend. It's a weird attitude to take, and you're absolutely right. We need to change this. I got to tell you, my empathy has gotten greater than when I was a young man. As I get older, I'm more empathetic. But that's not to suggest I'm empathetic enough. I try, but I got some work to do as well as most of us do. It would be a good world if we could do this. But we have a big problem right now. There is no room for empathy because we're so divided. And that is thanks to our political parties and thanks to our media. It's hard to be empathetic with somebody you hate or somebody you perceive as trying to destroy your country or your way of life. It's tough to be empathetic with that. But no doubt people on the Republican side have despair and difficulties and problems. I dare say that if we found out that Donald Trump had a heart attack and was in the hospital hanging on by a thread, there would be more people on the Democratic side cheering this than feeling sorry for him. Now, it might be warranted given all the damage he's done to this country. But as KCT said, empathy is just human decency. And we as a country have gotten away from human decency. There's no question about it. And I don't know how to fix it. I mean, you can tell people to be more empathetic, but half these people don't even know what empathy fucking is. So what do? A change like KCT is talking about is something, as he said, doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. We've got to change the culture. We've got to change society. And the only way we can do that at this point, I'm sorry to say, and I'm making it political, is by electing Democrats and hoping against hope that the Democrats follow through with all the things they claim they want to do. We need to make it more commonplace to help others, to give people a hand, to give back to the middle class and the poor. The Republicans are entirely on the opposite side there. Fuck the poor, fuck the middle class. Let's keep the elite and the rich healthy and happy. Problem with that is if you keep depleting the resources of anything, particularly the middle class and the poor, eventually you will run out of resources. Yes, the middle class and the poor will crash and it will be horrible. But at that moment, the rich people won't have any place to go graze anymore, any place to go grift. So we do need to make the changes, KCT, and hopefully we're headed more in that direction. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years, maybe decades, to get to where we should be. But I'd rather be on the road to that place than going the other way or not moving at all. So let's hope. Let's hope with some of the changes that are going to happen between now and November of 2024, we can at least start moving the needle to the left, to compassion, to decency. Let's hope. But it's going to take all of us to make sure that happens. Thank you, KCT. I appreciate that. The next and last email is from Matthew, who was actually on the podcast website. Says, hi, Mike. I love the podcast and everything you're doing. A longtime podcast listener. Definitely would love to be a guest on the show. I'm a younger blue dot in very red Ohio, and I think we could have a good episode. If not great, please email me back. And thank you, Matthew. Well, Matthew, I have to presume you're listening to the podcast if you listen to it regularly. And I will email you back, but I would suggest this. You email me at rationalboomer@gmail.com. Reiterate that you want to be on the show, and then we can discuss when and how it all works out. It's a very easy process. You send me a note, tell me when you're available. I'll tell you when I typically do the podcast, and we'll try to come to some agreement, some compromise there if need be. And then it's just a matter of me sending you a Zoom link. You click in the link coming on the Zoom, and we talk. It's very simple, and I'm sure it would be a great show. So I'm hoping you do that. All right. We had a bit of news toward the evening last night that is a little disconcerting. It's not surprising, but it is certainly disconcerting. And this is going to have to make the Trumplafucks step back and go, what the fuck? You see, former President Donald Trump allegedly discussed potentially sensitive information about U.S. nuclear submarines with a member of his Mara Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida, following his presidency. The member is Australian billionaire Anthony Pratt. A source familiar with the matter confirmed to CNN's Caitlin Collins that Pratt, who had a close relationship with Trump when he occupied the Oval Office, was interviewed by the special counsel probing Trump's retention of classified documents after leaving office. Another source told CNN's Kristen Holmes that Pratt is on the list of potential witnesses when the trial begins. Now, sources told ABC that Pratt allegedly went on to share the information received from the former president during an April 2021 meeting with more than a dozen foreign officials, as many as maybe 45 people he passed it along to. Some of the people he passed it along to include 6 journalists, 11 employees, 10 Australian officials, and 3 former Australian prime ministers. That is what we like to call dissemination. That is a serious crime. May not be the only time he's done that. We have the whole situation in New Jersey and the audio tape there. This is pretty devastating to Donald Trump. People have gone to jail for far less than that. If we don't consider all the other charges, these charges of dissemination will be devastating to Donald Trump. It's going to be interesting to see how Donald Trump responds to this, what kind of lie he's going to come up with. it's going to be even more interesting to find out how the Freedom Caucus or the MAGA fucks in Washington D.C. respond to it. Um, is this going to cause them any concern? Now, what I find interesting about the story is they say it's possibly sensitive, possibly classified documents. Well, I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert at all on this, but if you're passing information along that has to do with nuclear submarines, where they're located, how many warheads, and those sorts of things, if that isn't classified, I don't know what the fuck is. It's certainly military information. And even if it isn't classified, the fact that it's military or nuclear information, he's in a world of fucking trouble. Now, ABC reported that according to sources, a former Mara Lago employee told investigations that he was bothered by the former president disclosing such information to someone who's not a U.S. citizen. He added that he heard Pratt sharing potentially sensitive information minutes after his meeting with Trump. Now, these allegations were not included in special counsel Jack Smith's indictment of Trump over his handling of classified documents, but the incident was reported and investigated by Smith's team. Here's what you have to understand about indictments. They don't put everything in there. They just put enough to be able to make the charges. It's not unusual that indictments come out and there's some information, but it's not all the information. It'd be foolish for a lawyer to do that. Now, of course, a Trump spokesperson slammed ABC's report, telling CNN that the claims lack proper context and relevant information. Context, you say? In what context would it make it okay for Donald Trump to pass along nuclear submarine information? Number of warheads, where it's located. What context would it have to be to make that okay and legal? More bullshit from the Republican Party, more bullshit from Donald Trump's team. Now, the Department of Justice should investigate the criminal leaking instead of perpetrating their baseless witch hunts while knowing that President Trump did nothing wrong. He's always insisted on the truth and transparency and acted in a proper manner according to law, the spokesperson said. See, this is what they always do. When somebody has the audacity to actually talk about the crimes committed by somebody, they said, oh no, the leaker's the problem. Who said he was a leaker? It sounds like he was talked to by the special counsel. He probably spoken to under oath. It's not a leak. It's a guy testifying or a gal testifying as to what the fuck happened. And the idea that you think that they should get the leaker, that's well and good, but there was no fucking leaker. It was a witness. CNN has reached out to Pratt, who did not respond to multiple requests for a comment. A spokesperson for Smith declined to comment. Pratt allegedly told investigators that after he told Trump that Australia should buy submarines from the U.S., the former president went on to share how many nuclear warheads U.S. submarines carry and how close they can get to a Russian submarine without being detected. Sources told ABC, but Pratt told investigators that he was not shown any government documents, sources said. Well, it almost doesn't matter. When he was talking about how many warheads these things hold, that's enough. That's classified information. That's certainly not information we want the Russian or Chinese or the Saudi Arabians or any of these people knowing. The fact is, it doesn't matter if it's documents or not. If we can prove that this is done, he's in some serious trouble. Now, Pratt's company, Pratt Industries, opened a plant in Ohio while Trump was president. Trump attended the opening and praised the businessman in his remarks. Now, another source told Collins that during the visit, Pratt planned to unveil 2 plaques, an official one celebrating the plant's opening in the U.S. and a second one that he had told Trump about beforehand. The second plaque, which Pratt kept a secret until the day of the visit, read, "Make America and Australia Great Again." But officials attending the plant's opening quickly pulled it down and advised Pratt against the move. Yeah. Yeah. That happened. Now, we know that CNN previously obtained an audio from July 21st meeting Trump had in his Bedminster, New Jersey golf club, during which former president acknowledged that he held on to the classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. The audio, exclusively reported by CNN, was a critical piece of evidence in the special counsel's indictments. Now, Trump is facing 40 counts in his classified documents case, including willful retention of national defense information and conspiracy to obstruct justice. It is one of 4 cases in which the former president has been indicted. Now, the situation with the submarine stuff, if they can't pull the facts together to get specific information as to what info was given, it doesn't matter. This shows his willful disrespect of classified documents, his willingness to throw them around, give information out to anybody who asks for it. And that is enough. That is enough to be convicted. And if he's just convicted of one of these counts, he's done. We're talking 20 plus years, maybe more. Donald Trump is a fucking walking disaster. Everywhere he goes, he does something to harm somebody. Everything he touches turns to shit. And Donald Trump is going to have to be held accountable in all these situations. Those of you that think Donald Trump will never see the inside of a jail, well, I believe the only way he doesn't see the inside of a jail is if he dies beforehand. They have no choice but to put this clown in jail. The things he's done are more egregious than anybody we've ever seen, not just former presidents, anyone. Nobody has been a more prolific traitor than Donald Trump. It's fucking appalling. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But that story is very, very disconcerting. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Well, we were talking about Donald Trump and his attendance at Letitia James' lawsuit in New York. He was there 3 days, then got the fuck out of Dodge. He wasn't liking what he was hearing. He likes to control things, and he has no control in this courtroom. The judge does, the prosecution does, but he doesn't, and he's uncomfortable with it. So what's he do? He picks up and runs away, as narcissists tend to do. I've told you this before. A narcissist will always fight, will double down, triple down, try to weasel his way out of any situation. But there always comes that time when he can't do it anymore. So what does he do? He fucking bolts. And that's exactly what he did. He went back to Florida, then got himself in trouble with the lawsuit he had against Michael Cohen. He had to drop that one. Donald Trump is losing at every turn. But when he gets far enough away, he still starts yapping. I've said this before. He reminds me of the kids when you were in high school or junior or high school, and some kids come by and yell at you and make threats at you from a car, but they're going 45 miles an hour away from you. Real gutsy. And Donald Trump has no guts. Now, Trump faces the prospect of having his businesses in New York dissolved. He sent out a frantic early morning post on Truth Social in which he called for outside help to bail him out. He was literally begging for help. This is what they do. They run away and then they play the victim and, oh, I'm being mistreated and this and that. Fact is, Donald Trump committed all these crimes. He's being held accountable, and he's not used to that. Trump began his post with a rehash of other rants that he has made in the past about Letitia James and Judge Arthur Engeron. This is what he said, the ridiculous AG case against me in New York brought by the racist and incompetent Peekaboo James is being studied and mocked all over the world. No, it's not. Trump continued, without providing any evidence of any purported global ridicule of the case, Donald Trump kept ranting about this. Companies are fleeing, he said. It and the highly political Trump-hating judge are destroying the image and reputation of the New York State legal system and courts. I don't even get a jury. Well, it's because you didn't check the box, dumb fuck. All of this while murders and violent crime hit unimaginable records. This is so bad for New York. Is that why you moved to fucking Florida? Because nobody in New York likes you. Well, much of this is familiar ground. Trump then added a twist by calling for someone to get him out of this current jam. He said, help. The respected commercial division where it should have been sent in the first place must take over this shit show. Donald Trump has so much class. He has class coming out his ass. In addition to facing the prospects of losing his business, Trump also faces indictments for jurisdictions on 91 criminal charges. There's no way out for this motherfucker. He is now getting desperate. And as I've said before, when he gets desperate, he can be dangerous. I don't know what, if anything, he can do. He's trying to incite people to create some violence for him, but they aren't reacting. Nobody showed up in Florida, New York, D.C. when he was begging them to. And now he doesn't know what to do. He can't control his crowd of toothless fucking rednecks. So he's flailing now. He's flailing. And it's not working. Honestly, I would be surprised if at some point in the next year, Donald Trump doesn't have a complete emotional breakdown. This is going against everything he knows. He's always been bailed out. He's always gotten away with things. And in these situations, whether it be the lawsuit or the criminal charges, he's not getting out of it. There's nothing he can do or say. They got him dead to rights in the lawsuit, and there are going to be several convictions in his 91 felony charges. And there's probably going to be more for that. This is actually going to be kind of fun watching for the next year, watching Donald Trump spin around and shit himself, because that's exactly what's going to happen. He has no way out, and there is nobody that can fucking help him. He can scream and cry and whine, please help me, but there is nobody that can help him, even if they were willing to do it. I mean, Jim Jordan's trying like hell to get involved in these court cases to try to muddle it up. Not working. You need better people, Donnie. You need more formidable people than the Jim Jordans or the Matt Gaetzes or these fucking idiots. But even if you did have sharper people, you still couldn't do anything. The fact is, you committed these crimes. The fact is, there's evidence and witnesses, and you've been indicted. So you're going to trial, and you're going to fucking lose. In terms of the lawsuit, all the things that are being said that you did about deflating and inflating the values of your properties to game the system and make money for yourself, it's all right there. It's all right there in the paperwork. There's no way you can talk your way out of it. The only thing you've been able to say at this point, well, everybody does it, and I have Mona Lisa properties, so the values of my properties don't comply with the values of everybody else's properties. That's a good one, Donnie. You think that's going to work? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Well, since they voted out Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, we're getting kind of an interesting, a familiar thing going on in the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives. And it's even got a name at this point. People are looking at Matt Gaetz and they're thinking he's going to get Cawthorned. Now, you may remember Matthew or Madison Cawthorn. He was that skeevy little fuck that was talking loud and proud, not unlike Matt Gaetz is currently, but some seedy shit has come out about Madison Cawthorn. He tried to run for re-election. He lost in the primary to another Republican. Madison's gone. Have you heard from him lately? No. You have not heard from Madison Cawthorn. So the word Cawthorn has been trending on social media Thursday after Republican U.S. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, who served as a U.S. congressman for a decade until this year, made allegations on camera about Gaetz's behavior. This is interesting. This is a Republican calling out Matt Gaetz. Now, on Wednesday night, Mullins described Gaetz as a guy the media didn't give the time of day to after he was accused of sleeping with an underage girl. And there's a reason why no one in the Republican conference came and defended him, because we'd all seen the videos he was showing on the House floor that all of us had to walk away of the girls that he slept with. He bragged about how he would crush ED medicine and chase it with an energy drink so he could go all night long. Jesus Christ. Now, Senator Mullen continued his campaign against Gaetz Thursday morning, telling Newsmax there was many times that Gaetz would go out on news programs in the evening and he would tell me personally, hey, I got to go sell my constituents catheters, because all he was doing was selling himself. And evidently his constituent base is an older base, and that he thought that was funny to me. That's not funny. Mullen also said he was speaking from firsthand experience with Gaetz, saying, the first time I ever met this guy, he walked up to me and Kristi Noem at the time was at the podium. He detailed on camera the inappropriate remarks Gaetz had made about now Governor Kristi Noem. Now, we know Cawthorn had been exposed with numerous public embarrassments from the start of his short tenure in Congress. When he then of course he went and alleged that political leaders he looked up to in Washington, D.C. attended sex parties where they openly used illegal drugs like cocaine. Well, that just cut it for the Republicans. They ran his ass out on a rail. Now, in a podcast interview, Cawthorn had discussed the sexual perversion that goes on in Washington and suggested that he'd been invited to an orgy by an unnamed lawmaker. The Washington Post reported in March of 2022 his allegations infuriated Republicans, leading then Speaker McCarthy to both denounce them and declare Cawthorn has lost his trust. Allegations, including embarrassing video of Cawthorn, began to be released on the Daily Beast in May of 2022. Multiple embarrassing traffic stops, a credible accusation of insider trading, photos of him sporting hoop earrings and a bra. God forbid that happened to a Republican. A video of a male staffer's hand near his crotch. Another video showing him jokingly but nakedly humping the upper body of potentially the same man, his cousin. Well, he is from the South. Cawthorn later lost his primary race. And what have you heard about Cawthorn as of late? Nothing. And it sounds like they're about ready to do the same thing to Matt Gaetz. Question is, why are they so mad at Matt Gaetz? Well, he's a loudmouth piece of shit. He embarrasses the caucus, but so does Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, George Santos, Jim Jordan, Paul Gosar. Why Matt Gaetz? All these crimes they would have kept hidden. But they don't like Matt Gaetz because Matt Gaetz was the force behind kicking Kevin McCarthy out. Why is everybody so mad about Kevin McCarthy being taken out of the speakership? Well, Kevin McCarthy isn't a bright man. He isn't exactly powerful. He may have been the weakest Speaker of the House in history, but he had one quality that the Republicans loved. And apparently he was a hell of a fundraiser. And a lot of people in the House of Representatives counted on Kevin McCarthy's fundraising to help them with their elections. Well, now Matt Gaetz just kicked his ass out. They don't really have a Speaker of the House now. Nobody knows what's going to happen. You know, Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, Tom Emmer from Minnesota. A lot of people are saying, yeah, I want to be Speaker of the House. Fact of the matter is, none of them can get 218 votes. So good luck with that. They're going to end up fucking around with this for weeks before they actually come up with a candidate, before they come up with a Speaker of the House. And when that Speaker of the House finally gets in, he or she is going to be just as weak as Kevin McCarthy was, as long as they have this ability to make a motion to vacate. Now, some of them are saying, yeah, we should just get rid of that. Okay. So what? You still can't get anything done. And in order to get rid of that, you Republicans have to agree on this. And here's the problem. You're divided. This is why you're in this situation now, because you have the Freedom Caucus and you have people who act like they're normal, but they bend over backwards for MAGA. And as far as I'm concerned, they're just as bad as MAGA. No matter how normal you want to suggest you are, you're part of the worst situation in our Congress. Now, there's one other name that people are bandying about, and I think maybe even somebody nominated him for Speaker of the House. And that, of course, is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not going to be Speaker of the House. He can no more get enough votes to be voted in than Kevin McCarthy or Jim Jordan or Matt Gaetz himself. There aren't votes there to bring Donald Trump back into the fold. Most of the problems the Republican Party has is because of Donald Trump. In spite of MAGA, we're talking about anywhere from 20 to 30 people in MAGA. The rest of the people don't want to jump on that Trump train again because it didn't go well for him. But of course, Donald Trump has to offer his 2 cents. Former President Donald Trump announced he would accept the position of Speaker of the House of Representatives for a short period of time to help unify the GOP while they find a permanent leader, according to Fox News. Dude, you're the one that divided the Republican Party. Now you're going to come in and somehow unify these people? I beg to differ. Now, earlier this week, of course, McCarthy was kicked out of his job, and it was all started by Matt Gaetz. Now, despite his legal troubles, Trump seems eager to appear as a unifier for the GOP and offered to take over the job temporarily. He currently leads the crowded Republican presidential primary field by a large margin. Now, unfortunately, Donald Trump does not qualify to be Speaker of the House. Not only will he not get votes, the Republicans have a hard and fast rule. It's called the Rule 26. And that says that anybody who has been indicted for a crime that might give him at least 2 years in prison cannot be in Republican leadership in the House of Representatives. Donald Trump has 91 felony charges. He simply does not qualify. Now, that's not to say the Republicans could change the rule a la Ron DeSantis in Florida. But that's not an easy thing to do. Those rule changes usually come at the beginning of a session, and we're in the middle of a session. So it's going to be hard to do that, especially since Donald Trump can't get a majority to vote him in. They certainly aren't going to get a majority to change the rule. Excuse me. Now, Donald Trump said, I've been asked to speak as a unifier because I have so many friends in Congress. Trump said that in a statement to Fox News Digital. If they don't get the vote, they have to ask me if I would consider taking the speakership until they get somebody longer term because I am running for president. That's a good point. When does Donald Trump have the time to be a Speaker of the House? He's running for president, kind of. He's got lawsuits, he's got court cases, he's got trials coming up. Here's the deal. If you have a Speaker of the House and you intend to get anything done, you got to fucking show up and you actually have to do something. Donald Trump is not about doing anything. He's about making it look like he's doing something. And the Speaker of the House requires a bit of work. Even if you don't like Kevin McCarthy, he did put some work in. He did show up. Donald Trump won't show up. And frankly, they can nominate him all they want. He will not get the votes to be the Speaker of the House. I get a lot of people who are worried about this and upset about this. And I just tell you what I always tell you. If you believe Donald Trump has a remote possibility of being Speaker of the House, you are listening to the Republicans and you're getting scared from people who lie all the time, who bullshit all the time, who fail all the time. Stop listening to the rhetoric. Stop listening to fucking Trumplafucks. Donald Trump's not going to do this. He doesn't have the fucking time. He's not qualified. It's not going to happen. Now, Trump didn't state who in the GOP specifically asked him to serve as Speaker, although numerous members, including Gates, have brought up the idea. And that was before Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise have announced their bids to succeed McCarthy. The former president noted that he would be willing to come for the position for a 30, 60, or 90-day period until the GOP comes to a consensus. Well, that's not how it fucking works, Donnie. This isn't a part-time job. This isn't a temporary job. What are we going to have? A temp Speaker of the House? Sorry, bitch, that ain't the way it goes. Donald Trump went on to say, I would only do it for the party, he said, stressing that his focus is on his presidential campaign. Back in January, as the House considered who should become the Speaker after Republicans took the majority of the chamber, Gates opted not to vote for McCarthy or Representative Byron Donalds, who was floated as an option, and instead for Trump. Matt Gaetz voted for Donald Trump the first time around. He didn't get in then. He's not going to get in now. Just stop it. Don't worry about this shit. They're going to be hard pressed to get any fucking Speaker of the House, let alone Donald Trump. No matter who is going to be running, Jim Jordan, Scalise, whoever the fuck it is, they still need 218 votes, and neither one of them can get it. Now, I heard a very sad story last night. It's an ongoing sad story. It's about Mike Lindell. Now, Mike Lindell came out recently and he said, I'm broke. My company's failing. I'm in bankruptcy. I can't do this. I can't do this. He's got all kinds of problems. Well, those problems got a little worse yesterday. The attorneys representing Mike Lindell and MyPillow in defense against the defamation lawsuits filed by Smartmatic and Dominion Voting Systems have filed a motion to withdraw, alleging that their pillow purveying client hasn't paid their legal bills in months and owes them millions of dollars. Now, in the aftermath of the 2020 election, former President Donald Trump and his allies made a staggering quantity of misinformation posts and speeches wild claims, conspiracy theories that are flat out lies. And of course, Mike Lindell was right there repeating all this shit. You would have thought at the point where he was being sued by Dominion and Smartmatic to the tune of billions of dollars, money he does not have, clearly, can't even pay his own fucking lawyers. It's amazing to me that when he was confronted with the situation he was in, he still kept pushing forward. And it's like I said with Trumplefucks, they keep doubling and tripling down. They will never step backwards, even up to the point where they fall off the cliff and destroy themselves. And that is what Mike Lindell has essentially done. He destroyed his company. He destroyed his personal wealth, his personal life, and he did it all for Donald Trump, a guy that wouldn't turn around and do anything for anybody, especially Mike Lindell. Now, at this time, the lawyer said defendants are in arrears by millions of dollars to the firm. The memo adds, arguing that the firm is a small litigation and trial firm in Minneapolis and cannot afford to finance defendants' defense in these litigations. Forcing the firm to foot the bill to continue this case would impose a serious financial burden and put it in serious financial risk and could threaten the very existence of the firm. Now, there is no trial date set for this lawsuit. Fact discovery is not set to close until May 30th of 2024. The attorneys argue so granting the motion to withdraw would not result in any delay to the trial date and will not unfairly prejudice any party. So what does Mike Lindell do? He goes on Steve Bannon's podcast, War Room. Funny, he didn't call me, and I'm here in Minnesota. Lindell announced that his lawyers had filed to drop us as our attorneys. The clip was flagged by progressive media watchdog group Media Matters. Lindell bemoaned this setback as a result of what he called the lawfare committed against My Pillow and said, "We can't pay the lawyers. There's no money left over to pay them." Still, he vowed, "I'll never settle anything." He's not going to settle out of court. Of course he's not. These are billion-dollar fucking lawsuits, and he has no money. What's he going to settle with? Now, he could have gotten out of this long, long ago, but he chose not to. I know he wants people to feel sorry for him, but this motherfucker asked for it. Now, he went on to say, "I will never, ever be quiet. I will never stop fighting no matter what. And I will never settle with the evil that's out there, the corruption. And these guys, what they have done to our country with these hiding what's inside those machines." And then Bannon said, "Hey, hang on. The Murdochs settled," referring to Fox's settlement with Dominion. "You don't agree with Murdoch?" Lindell kind of demurred and suggested Fox was part of yet another conspiracy, the proof of which seems destined to be promised in a future Lindell produced election crimes documentary, but somehow never quite materialized. What's he going to do now? He had money where he could put on his little song and dance on his internet television show. But how long can that last? He's got no money. Mike Lindell ran himself into the ground. He's fucking done. He is another victim of Donald Trump, and he doesn't even realize it. That is what's so sad. That's appalling. In some ways, you got to feel sorry for Mike Lindell, but at the same time, as I said, he was asking for this. He seemed so sure that he was right when he was absolutely wrong. All right, we're going to wind down the Rational Boomer podcast as we do. But as further evidence of Donald Trump's desperation, Donald Trump is currently asking a federal judge to dismiss criminal charges against him based on his actions leading up to his January 6th, 2021 coup attempt, because as president, that coup attempt should be considered part of his presidential duties, even though it's unconstitutional. Trump's lawyers Todd Blanche and John Lauro, in Thursday's 52-page filing to the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, attempted to minimize Trump's actions leading up to the violent assault on the Capitol that day. Regardless, the law allowed Trump to act based on his belief that the election had been stolen. Well, that's where the questions come in. Some people suggest, some witnesses, some Republican witnesses suggest he did know. And now he's going to try to act like he didn't and have the case dismissed. Well, if you're worried about this, don't, because the case will not be dismissed for this. Donald Trump said the indictment is based entirely on alleged actions. Well, actually, this came from the lawyers because this was coherent and had multisyllabic words in it, so it had to be the lawyers. The indictment is based entirely on alleged actions within the heartland of President Trump's official duties, or at the very least within the outer perimeter of his official duties, Blanche and Laurel wrote. As President Trump is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for such acts, the court should dismiss the indictment. President Trump's alleged tweets and public statements about fraud in the election and the role of the vice president in the certification process were directly related to his contentions. Number one, the presidential election's outcome was tainted by fraud and other procedural irregularities. Well, 60 court cases say you're wrong, and every bit of evidence says you're wrong. Number two, the U.S. Department of Justice and certain state governments had failed to adequately investigate and prosecute fraud and irregularities in the election, because there was none. We're supposed to go out and have these things that didn't happen investigated just to satisfy you. All that is a delay tactic. They also argued that the Supreme Court precedent acknowledged that a president needed to be able to take bold and unhesitating action at times without fear of prosecution, and that was what Trump was doing. Oh, yeah, he did such a good job. You go on to say here, 234 years of unbroken historical practice from 1789 until 2023 provide compelling evidence that the power to indict a former president for his official acts does not exist. Sorry, but a coup attempt is not part of his official acts. Now, Blanche and Laurel also argue that the only allowable means of punishing a president for his actions was an impeachment, trial, and removal by the U.S. Senate. Trump was in fact impeached by the House for inciting the January 6th insurrection, and 57 senators, including 7 Republicans, voted to convict him, even though he was already out of office. That figure was 10 shy of what was needed to convict, which would likely have been followed by a majority vote to ban Trump from federal office forever. They're trying real hard. But these concepts and these arguments certainly don't come from the minds and mouths of lawyers, because they should know better. These are the stories and the bullshit that Donald Trump spews. And for whatever reason, he has the power over these lawyers to have them in turn deliver that information, however ridiculous and maybe illegal they are. Donald Trump's not going to get this case dismissed. He's tried to dismiss it before for other reasons. It didn't work. Judge Chutkan is a very intelligent judge. This had gone through the grand jury process. A lot of investigation is done. The evidence is there. So I suspect that Donald Trump is going to be woefully disappointed when it's all said and done. This is what I mean about Donald Trump. He is lost. He is scared shitless. He is simply flailing, trying to do anything and everything to try to stop these cases. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, he can't. The indictment train is moving. and it isn't going to be stopped by anything. Donald Trump can try everything he wants, but he's just some civilian sitting in shitty diapers down in Mara Lago or New Jersey, wherever he is, and he's not going to be able to do it. His lawyers are the bottom of the barrel lawyers, and they don't have the wherewithal to do what they need to do. We know this because they're taking everything Donald Trump says and spilling it to the judges. And in the process, they're embarrassing themselves. Donald Trump's not getting out of this. He's not getting out of anything. He is going to be held accountable. And I'm looking forward to it. When that first one drops, it'll be like an avalanche of bad shit happening to Donald Trump. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.